Welcome to It's Art, Let's Talk About It, a podcast sponsored by the Museum of Western Art in Kerrville, Texas. Located in the heart of the Texas Hill Country, the museum is dedicated to the preservation and promotion of the American West, especially through the art of the West. In this podcast series, we will visit with artists, art collectors, and gallery directors working in the Western art genre. We'll talk about the history and heritage of Western art, and we'll talk about why talking about Western art is so important. I'm Darrell Beauchamp, the Executive Director of the museum, and I'll be your host for It's Art, Let's Talk About It. The podcast is a member of the Texas Hill Country Podcast Network.
In this episode, Darrell visits with Allyson Sheumaker, the Executive Director of the A.R. Mitchell Museum of Western Art in Trinidad, Colorado. I know you'll enjoy this episode.
And we are here today with Allyson Sheumaker.
You did.
Sheumaker.
Sheumaker.
He's the Executive Director of the A.R. Mitchell Museum of Western Art in Trinidad, Colorado. And you're on live with It's Art, Let's Talk About It, a production of the Museum of Western Art in Kerrville, Texas, and the Texas Hill Country Podcast Network. And Allyson, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
We've tried this before, but it just didn't work.
We did.
It's important now that we get it. And thanks to our producer here, Zach, we're going to make this one work for us. But folks, the reason this is an important interview is that A.R. Mitchell was nobody to me 3 years ago. He was one of those unknown artists because he wasn't one of those people who sold a lot of art to the general public over the years.
He did not like to sell his art. He would trade with other artists, but he dn't like to sell it.
And so I had a chance to meet with Allyson, and we've met and talked about doing an A.R. Mitchell show because he is one of the most fabulous illustrators I've ever seen.
King of Western pulp illustrations.
Early 20th century stuff. And I was fascinated by it and the colors and stuff. And so you and I started a conversation about doing a show, and it became evident that we needed to schedule some time to do an exhibition of A.R. Mitchell's work. So I visited in Trinidad, Colorado. A.R. Mitchell Museum is on several occasions. And you and I started this conversation about putting together a show, and we were able to pull that off. And it opens this coming Saturday. By the time people hear this podcast, the opening day will have come and gone. But it's important that they come see this show while it's up until the middle of April, because A.R. Mitchell is somebody to be reckoned with. So let's just start by talking about A.R. Mitchell. Arthur Roy Mitchell.
Everybody called him Mitch.
Mitch.
Every now and then I'll see a letter addressed to Roy, but I don't think he was ever Arthur. Maybe to his mother. But
his government name.
He was just Mitch to everybody else. And we call him the Mitch a lot. If I'm talking to a board member or people around town, it's the Mitch. So he started his art career as a professional artist a little bit later in life. He worked as an artist, but not in a traditional way. When he was about 17, he had a full-time job at the Trinidad Chronicle News he was the director of advertising and circulation. And he did a lot of cartoons for the local newspaper. That local newspaper is still being published today as the Chronicle News. But he did that. And then at about 1916, he left Trinidad to see the world. He told his sister, Tot, who was his best friend, if I don't leave, I'm going to mold. So he left Trinidad, got on the train, went to California, San Francisco, Seattle, ended up in Iowa for a while, working for a publishing company, doing their advertising mock-ups. And he still did some cartoons every now and then. Ended up in Seattle, was a drill sergeant in World War I. He was slightly heartbroken that he didn't get to ride a horse for the Army, but they didn't want cowboys because in a letter that he wrote his sister, he said, they made me a drill sergeant and wouldn't give me a horse because they thought cowboys wouldn't take direction. So
that's probably true.
Yeah. After World War I, he was always stateside. After World War I, he went back to Seattle, found out that an idol of his, Harvey Dunn, was going to be teaching a class at the Grand Central Art School on the 7th floor of the Grand Central Station in New York City. And then he found out that Harold von Schmidt was going to be taking that class too. So he sold everything at, I think, 37 years old, got on a train and went to New York City, sent Todd a letter that said, Union Station, Grand Central Station, this is the largest hay barn I've ever seen in my life. So he was there until 1942. So he took art classes with Harvey Dunn. Then Harvey Dunn left the Grand Central Art School and started, I don't know if I'd call it a colony, but a group of illustrators in Leonia, New Jersey, which is just right across the river. It's not far from Manhattan. And Mitchell was there until he was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer in 1942 and told, "You're going to die, get your house in order." And he went back to Trinidad, where he did not die, lived another 34 years.
Yeah, I started to say he lived into his 70s.
He did into his
1970s.
80s. Yeah, 1977. So he was born in 1889 and died just a month shy of his birthday in 1977.
Get your house in order. You're going to die. And
and instead, he founded the art department at what's now Trinidad State College.
In Trinidad, Colorado.
In Trinidad, founded the Trinidad History Museum, which is still there today. It's part of Colorado now. And he was the curator there until he was 86 years old. 2 years before he died, he finally retired and moved to Denver and hung out with his sister until he died.
The show that we're hosting now through April is called A.R. Mitchell, the King of the Western Pulp Illustrators. And it has 2 galleries, the Egloff Gallery, where we have a lot of his illustrations and book covers, magazine covers, personal memorabilia. And then a second gallery that is, it's nocturnes, landscapes, and Adobe. And so 2 different looks at the genius of one man. When I first heard about who in the world is A.R. Mitchell, because again, he never sold anything. He'd give things away, but he was mostly known for his illustrative techniques, his ability to illustrate the cover of a book. And he'd send that work off to New York City and they'd send him back the corrections he needed to make, flip this or less color, whatever. And he'd paint the painting and then he'd keep the painting after it was all done.
Not always. He figured out early on that these publishing companies, back then, nobody thought of illustrators as real artists. Yeah, they were too prolific. They were too quick. They could just spit things out. But these publishing companies were just tossing these original paintings or putting them on a burn pile. A lot of these companies were printing 5 or 6 magazines a week. So imagine back then you had the original artwork for hundreds of covers a year, and they would just toss them. So Mitchell started asking for them back, if he could have it back. And they were happy to do it. A lot of them were happy to do it because then they didn't have to store it or figure out what to do with it. And we, in total, in the Mitchell Museum, we have 250 original Mitchell paintings. We have thousands of sketches and thousands of photographs back in the day when we had to have our photos developed. I still have pictures that I should throw away. I don't know the people in them anymore, but Mitchell kept all of those. And they were reference photos for these illustrations. But he did over 160 Pulp Western magazine covers from 1927 to 1944. So
when we first met Mitchell's work through you and through going to the Mitch Museum, I would ask illustrators, friends, my artist friends of mine, have you ever heard of it? Oh yeah. I mean, it was a very close knit community of people who love and admire the work. And yet popular culture, I didn't know who he was. And yet you show the magazine covers and people recognize him. That's the cool thing. You know, they know his work. They just didn't know who did it, whoever did it.
Absolutely. Because he was very prolific. And in this show, at the Museum of Western Art, we have the first illustration that was published of his. It's The Very Bad Day. It looks like the horse is upside down in a hole. His leg is a gopher hole. And that's a day in the life of Mitchell when he was 16 on a cattle drive for the A6 Cattle Company.
Yeah, let me lay out for those of you listening along. We're visiting with Allyson Sheumaker, the executive director of the A.R. Mitchell Museum of Western Art in Trinidad, Colorado. And the show is, like I say, 2 galleries. One of them is the illustrations of Mitchell, and we've got the illustration, the painting, framed in most cases, and some of his sketches. But what's really cool is the finished cover. So you see how it progressed over the years. And there's several of those, and it's just a lovely, incredible look. And I had a visitor come in just today who said, why was there so much white space or blank space above the cowboy's head?
I hear that a lot.
And I thought, well, isn't it obvious? He was an illustrator. Come in, and I pointed out to her, she said, "Oh, that's where the words go,
Yeah.
up in the sky." And it's not fine art, if you will, but it was an illustrative look.
It looks unfinished to a lot of
In many
people.
cases, it looks
unfinished, but
and sometimes garish a little bit. His colors are a little bright in color.
they are in your face, bright colors.
And
it's
for those
not
of
a
you playing
subtle
along at home,
sunset.
there's two things. We'll post some pictures down on our website of that, but there's also a link on our website right now that you can click on and go out to the electronic catalog for the show. The Mitchell people, Grace put together. Grace
is our archivist and curator.
And
Grace Albert
put together a really lovely catalog that you can flip through and see the PDFs of everything in the show. And so we've got that linked. You can see Mitchell's work, and you can go out to the A.R. Mitchell Museum website, which is
armitchellmuseum.com.
Real simple. armitchellmuseum.com. So he had a whole life of this stuff, and he's gathering stuff, but there wasn't a Mitchell Museum until after he passed.
He passed in 1977. A group got together and established the Arthur Roy Mitchell Memorial in 1979. The museum opened in 1981. So for the
2 years before the Museum of Western Art did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Here.
But several of the pieces that are in this show came to the Museum of Western Art back when it was the Cowboy Artist of America Museum.
Yeah.
I think 1987.
Yeah, 1987, we hosted a show where A.R. Mitchell's work included A.R. Mitchell's work.
Included some of this
and
work.
There's stickers on the back from the CA Museum, which is pretty cool to see your own sticker on the back of something.
When Grace was curating the show, there were several of them that she said, this has to go back because it was there before.
Yeah.
But so we've talked about the illustrations. The other side of the exhibit is Mitchell loved plein air painting. He loved just to get in his car, drive out in the field and start painting.
So what we put together in what we call the Kieckeffer, Thelma Kieckeffer Gallery, are nocturnal adobies and landscapes of Mitchell, the non-illustrative side.
Now, a couple of those nocturnes were illustrations, but they don't look like an illustration. They're full finished paintings, but one of them was on the cover of American Legion magazine. And I believe sometime in 1932. But the adobes, Mitchell was obsessed with two things, horses and adobes. When we have sketches that I'm just going to say thousands of sketches of horses, and just a large amount of the collection of plein air pieces are adobes and landscapes, but he just loved the light on an adobe. So we brought quite a few. And you think adobes, how many different ways can you paint an adobe? But when you see the exhibit, there's no two that are really even similar.
It's a lovely look.
Yeah.
As nocturnes, landscapes, and adobes. But back to the creation of the museum, 1981, they opened the museum. That location, it was a different location.
No, it was still on Main Street in Trinidad, just about two blocks down Main Street. And then our current location, our permanent location, it's the old Jameson department store.
Okay.
That department store opened in 1886, built the building that we're in now in 1906, and closed in 1985. So the department store was open for 100 years, 80 years in the location where we are now. So it's a 47,000 square foot former department store that the museum purchased in 1989 and reopened the museum in there in 1991.
And it's a cool building.
It is.
You walk in the door, of course, the gift shop museum store over to the right and the gallery to the left, but you look up and there's
huge mezzanine.
This mezzanine that's incredible.
It's gorgeous.
The second and third stories, it's big stairs and grand stairways.
We think the building is as much a part of the collection as the artwork.
We feel the same way about the Museum of Art, right? So if you're lucky, you get to work and operate in a building that's not only cool. We have people come in just to see the building.
There's never been a day that I've gotten out of bed and thought, I've got to go to that old building again today. That just doesn't happen.
You've been in that location for 20 plus years.
Yeah. Yeah. We've been in, the museum has been open for 45 years. 2026 is our 45th anniversary. And we've been in our current location for 35 of those 45 years.
And so you have Mitchell's work on a lot of walls. You guys have traveling exhibitions that you do.
We do.
And you have a place for artists to hang out.
We do. Our third floor is artist studio spaces. They're all rented out right now, but we've had artists just come in and sit in the museum and paint. I'm perfectly fine with that. It's free. It's always free admission. We do take donations, but it's free to anybody Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 4. So we said Mitchell didn't like to sell his paintings, but he loved to trade. We have an exhibit up right now of it's Mitchell, Harvey Dunn, and Harold Von Schmidt. It's teacher and 2 students. And that exhibit will be up probably for the next year. We've been taking a quarter of the museum each quarter and put up a new exhibit. Okay. We have so much in our collection that it's fun to rotate those exhibits and put something new out in a different way. You may have seen the painting before, but in a different context.
Right. And of course, loan it to loan things to the museum.
We have 2 exhibits traveling right now, one here in Kerrville and one at the Coors Western Art Show in Denver, both for about the same amount of time. This is the first time we've ever had 2 exhibits out at once. So the museum permanent collection that's on exhibit right now, a little lighter than it usually is. It's not quite as illustration heavy because they're all being seen other places, right?
And when I first started talking about this with my board, with the community of artists, a lot of the people in the community, who in the world is A.R. Mitchell? Why would you do a show about an unknown artist? But we'd ask artists, what do you think about doing an A.R. Mitchell show? And they're just, wow, are you kidding? You can get that many? And so it's been a real blessing to see that many in one place.
So that's a huge part of my job, is getting the word out that he was somebody and what he did. There's so many people that when you talk about illustrations, you talk about Norman Rockwell or Charlie Russell. There's so many that are so famous because they sold their artwork. Sure. And Mitchell never married and he didn't have children. So he thought of these paintings as his kids. Right. That's why he would give them away. He would take it to somebody's house and say, I'm just going to hang this here for a while. I'm out of storage space, and never come get it again. He would sell a painting if he needed to, but he had a salary from the state of Colorado or from teaching at the college. He didn't have to live off of selling his artwork.
Let's talk about his relationship with his sister, Dot.
So he had 2 sisters. Okay. Their names were Ethel and Harriet, and he called them Hat and Tot.
Not Dot. Tot.
T-O-T.
T-O-T. Right.
T-O-T. Tot.
Because there's several paintings of Tot's house.
Yes, because so Mitchell would bring all of his artist buddies from New York, New Jersey to Tot's ranch, just about, I guess, in today's car, it'd be about a 30-minute drive from Trinidad. Okay. In the 1920s and 30s, it'd take you a little bit longer. But she had a big ranch near Stonewall, Colorado, and they would hang out for a month or 2. In the summer, when it was so hot in New York and New Jersey, they'd come to the ranch.
Set the stage for everybody who may not know the geography of Colorado real well. Where is Trinidad?
Trinidad is, if you're heading north on I-25 from New Mexico up to Colorado, Trinidad is the first town you come to in the state of Colorado. It is 3 hours from Santa Fe, 3 hours from Denver.
After you get over the Raton Pass.
After you leave New Mexico, Main Street, where the Mitchell Museum is, exit 13. So we are 13 miles from the New Mexico
down in the corner
border.
of Colorado. Right?
Yeah, we're right down there at the bottom. Technically in the southeast region of Colorado, but it's almost in the middle. But technically, if you're talking about geographically, we're Los Animas County. It's the largest county in Colorado, but we have more dirt roads than paved roads. Just a little fun fact about Los Animas.
Our guest today on It's Art, Let's Talk About It is Allyson Sheumaker, the executive director of the A.R. Mitchell Museum of Western Art, or as we love to refer to it, the Mitch. And we're talking about our exhibition. Talk about the development of the exhibition. Grace, you guys have been thinking about this for about 2 years. We've been talking about
this.
Yes. Why the pictures that we've got? Why are we hanging?
So you and I met in September 2 years ago. Yeah. And I just cold called you and said, I'm going to be in the area and I'd like to come and visit with you.
Absolutely.
And then we got to talking and you said, hey, how about a traveling exhibit? I got some space a year and a half from now in January.
And go one step further. We had put together a show called The Mac Cowboys, featuring the works of Sherma Lee and Lou Mack and sculptors and some of their artwork.
Fun connection there.
And turns out that Sherma Lee and Lou had a connection to Trinidad. And so after you and I had met, when I called and, hey, listen, we've got one that we've already put together. All you got to do is just rock and roll it. We'll get it up to you and you guys can open it. And you took us up on that offer, really successful. And we're glad we were able to participate in that. And then our scheduling is about 1.5 years, 2 years out on any show before I have any gallery space available. And we said, hey, let's do an A.R. Mitchell show.
So Sherma Lee, we're pretty sure, in talking to her son, John, we're pretty sure she took art classes at Trinidad State. Mitchell.
Okay.
Yeah. And her parents bought the ranch from Tot and her husband, Malcolm. So the ranch where Sherma Lee and her family lived was Mitchell's sister's ranch. That Mitchell built that adobe house.
And Sherma Lee and Lou Mack were famous in Bandera, Texas, south of here. And they had an exhibition at the Bandera Museum, the big museum down there. And it's just a real fun event to find all these these ties, the things with our world's it's small enough. It's not as big as we think it is.
So in June last year, June 2025, we hired Grace Albert. She had interned for us at the museum. She graduated in May and we hired her in June. And this was the first thing. She's got about 40 years worth of work to do in our archives. So she got started on that, but in the back of her mind was always this January opening. This is going to happen. And it was a big job for a brand spanking new archivist curator. But I turned her loose and I said, this is how I want it to be. Yeah. I want this room landscapes, adobies. I want this room illustrations. You can choose the artwork. It can be your vision. You plan it. And I just would just make a few little corrections along the way, just a little tweak here. Oh, I don't think we need quite that many. And we ended up with 57 pieces.
Yeah, there's 57 works.
Yeah, and that was
plus the memorabilia.
Yep, right.
The gas mask from World War I.
Right.
The pocket pocket knives.
The packet of tobacco. Mitchell kept everything. So I knew it
easels,
wouldn't.
Hats.
Yes.
We've got a lot of it.
Notebooks, notes on how he mixed colors, the color saturation, all. But I knew it would be a great learning experience for Grace. One, it would really get her into the collection and get her familiar with every piece in there because she was going through every one of them, picking what was going to be right for this exhibit.
And did a fine job with it.
She did. She did a great job.
I hope people get by to see it. It runs through the middle of April, the 15th, I think, of April. It's going to be here a while, but we think it's important enough for people to get in and see the works of A.R. Mitchell.
And I think it's also something that you could come to more than once and see something different.
See something, a different look, or feel. And we've done a really good job. Our curator and educator and Caitlin Nicholas and myself and working with Grace and you and all that, we've put together what I think is a pretty fine little show.
And they surprised me with that digital catalog. Yeah. I just got an email yesterday saying we were working on something. Check it out.
Look here on our website. If you found this podcast on our podcast website at museumwesternart.com, there's a link there for the catalog. And you click on that and you get the flip book catalog that was put together by Grace. And it's just fabulous, right? Yeah. It shows you everything that's in the collection and it's added value to already really,
a little bit
really
more
good
information.
Show.
Maybe all the information that's in the digital catalog may not be on the wall at the show, and we're always available. You can email myself. You can email Grace, armitchellmuseum@gmail.com if you have any other questions. But it's exciting to me to see Mitchell's artwork outside of the Mitchell Museum. That's so exciting to me to think that people that have never been exposed to him before, never knew who he was, are going to get to see him for the first time.
Yeah. And like I said, we've had a lot of artists who've expressed an interest in coming to see that many Mitchell works in one place. And a lot of people who've gone to the Mitchell Museum building, gone to your museum and saw works there, but to see them contained in two galleries, not little, but two galleries.
Yeah.
So it's exciting. Talk for just a second about Mitchell's use of color. There is a lot.
There's a lot of colors. So Mitchell would say
green skies and blue shirts,
bright yellow, almost fluorescent, but
almost back in the day. And we're talking the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s.
His illustrations span from 1927 to 1942.
Okay.
There's probably some book covers after that, but the magazine cover illustrations stopped in 1940.
What was fun was I was looking at some of these paintings. I'm going, cowboys in the 1920s, 30s didn't wear those shoes.
Absolutely not.
He would the bright
Purple,
colors,
green,
cool
red.
greens.
Yeah.
And then you and I've talked about it over dinner the other night. They're wearing them now.
Yeah,
Right? I mean,
they for
it's
sure are
perfect.
today. Yeah. But he would say, I've got 5 seconds to get your attention, to grab the magazine cover with his illustration on it versus another one. Now, I will say, I have a letter that he wrote his sister, that he was walking down the sidewalk in Manhattan and stopped at a newsstand just to see what was on the newsstand. And 6 of his covers were on the newsstand at one time. And he's, that's not right. I'm competing with myself. What's going on here? But he worked for so many different publishing companies, not just one in particular, that put out so many different magazines. But they were real people, real cowboys in his illustrations. I can tell you the names of some of them in his illustrations, but he had to put them in a red shirt or a purple shirt or a bright green shirt just to get your attention.
Do you think that Mitchell influenced, and I'll just give you my answer, I think he did influence guys like Andy Warhol?
Probably.
Because the color
Yeah.
schemes are very similar.
Yeah. When I see some of Andy Warhol's, like his Western series, I do think of Mitchell because of the colors, because of those crazy bright colors. Now, Warhol in the 60s and 70s, that was popular then. Mitchell was doing it not when it was popular, but just to grab your attention, like all these kids today with graphic novels or
Right.
comic books. It was the same thing. He had to get your attention for you to grab that 5-cent magazine or 10-cent magazine.
What do you think he liked doing best? Illustrations, landscapes, nocturnals?
I think landscapes were peace for him. I think that was peaceful for him.
That was where he went when he needed to.
Yes, but the illustrations were his job, that he could not believe someone was paying him to paint his friends doing what they were doing normally. Now, some of the photos that we have, they're definitely posed reference photos. They're posing with a shotgun or they're posing with a pistol, which we have those shotguns and pistols that he used in the museum. But some of them are just everyday life. There's one that's on the media for this show, and it's called Bustin', and it's a light blue background and a guy on a bucking horse. We have the photo that he used as a reference for that. That was a day in the life. That was a real life thing that happened one day, and he snapped a photo of it, sketched it, which we have the sketch in the show, sent the sketch off to the publisher, and he's, yep, we'll take it. Here's some notes. We want that. And we have the cover that it was on also in the show.
So at what point did this actually become a museum? Because not many artists at the end of their lives have enough stuff. Was it his sisters?
It was his sister.
And there were?
Because Mitchell hadn't taught. Now,
hadn't taught.
Harriet passed away when she was in her mid-50s.
Okay.
Tot died 1984. She was 2 years older than Mitchell, but she lived quite a bit longer than him. Well, a few years longer than him. But so Mitchell, because he never married and didn't have children, he left everything to Tot. And then Tot said, I've got all of this. I've got a museum's worth of artwork. This is what we're going to do with it. And several of Mitchell's friends, Richard and Willard Loudon, Ruth Henritze, all got together. Not Frank Cordova. Oh gosh, I can't remember his name. He was the first director of the museum, but they all got together. And
did she see the museum open?
She saw the museum.
Okay.
She never saw it in the Jameson building,
in the current building,
but
the original building.
But she saw it. She left $125,000 endowment that they couldn't get to until it had been open for 5 years. It had to prove that it could be open. Now there were several big deal places that wanted his collection, and she said, "No, I want it to be in Trinidad. I want it to be used as a reason for people to come to Trinidad."
A.R. Mitchell Museum is a nonprofit, 501c3. Mm-hmm. So donations can be made to the A.R. Mitchell, the number.
Yep,
so
they can call me. They can do it online. There's Lots of
you're
different
like the Museum of Western Art. I'll meet you 2 in the morning if I know you're coming.
Exactly. You just
Especially
tell
to
me
give
where
me-
you want me to meet you, and I'll be
to
there.
give me money,
Mhm.
talk about our museum. The exhibition is called A.R. Mitchell, King of the Western Pulp Illustrators. It's on display at the Museum of Western Art in Kerrville, Texas until the middle of April, right before our Roundup exhibition.
Mhm.
A lot of people have a chance and opportunity to see it. Why should they come see it?
Because
Here's your elevator each time.
because it's fantastic.
Why come see this? Why make the trip?
Because illustrations are all around us and people forget about them. People don't realize something's an illustration until it's pointed out to them. You walk into this show and you're like, oh, that's an illustration.
Got you.
That's what, and it puts the rest of it into context. For me, it does. Before I took this job, I couldn't have told you, show me an illustration. I would have been, do I need to draw something? I can't draw. That's what was in my ignorant mind then. Now I go into a grocery store and all I see are illustrations jumping off of packages at me because they are everywhere, but we ignore them and we don't think of them as important. You can't come into the show and not immediately learn how important illustrations were and the very important role they played in our society, 20s, 30s, 40s, and even in today.
Do you have a favorite in the exhibition?
And this, I think Bustin, the one that y'all used.
Our cover picture,
Yes.
if you will, and the one that was on the banner.
I love that one. And there's one, we call it 4th of July. It's got a bright green background. It has a beautiful redheaded woman. She shows up in a lot of Mitchell's paintings, nudes, illustrations. She was an opera singer in New York City that he dated for about 10 years. But that one has been my screensaver before I took the job as director. I was given that graphic. I worked for the newspaper and we had a printing company and we printed some materials for the museum. So they sent me that high-res graphic and I have held on to it ever since then.
This is called A.R. Mitchell, King of the Western Pulp Illustrators, on display at the Museum of Western Art in Kerrville, Texas, 1550 Bandera Highway. You can read more about it at museumofwesternart.com, museumofwesternart.com. And our exhibitions page of that, you'll see the logo for the A.R. Mitchell exhibition. Click on that. You can see the catalog. There's just all sorts of ways of finding out more about A.R. Mitchell.
He was quite the interesting
before
fella.
we go, books. We're going to have some books.
We'll have some books and, little surprise, we'll also have some prints. And several of the prints are in the show.
All right. So A.R. Mitchell, the book I really thought was cool is called The Mitchellisms.
Now, that one is out of print. You can find that one on Amazon or a few places online.
Not cheap, you get.
No, but we're out of them at the museum. We're in the process of getting more printed. And that was written by one of the founding members of the museum.
And then the other book is the Dean Krekel book.
Yeah, the Dean Krekel book. Mitch, we'll have that one in your gift shop.
Yeah, that's a great book.
That's an in-depth, deep dive into Mitchell.
Our guest today has been Allyson Sheumaker, the executive director of the the A.R. Mitchell Museum of Western Art in Trinidad, Colorado.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on. It's Art, Let's Talk About It, a production of the Texas Hill Country Podcast Network. Our friend Zach over here running the show for us, and we're so thankful that he was able to push the record button correctly, because I've screwed it up several times. I think we got it this time. But if you're looking at this, listening to it at home, want to play along, go out to our website. There's photographs, there's the catalog, and don't forget.
It's a really good show. Grace did a phenomenal job.
Oh, don't miss this one. This is I tell people all the time, don't miss this show, but really don't miss this one. Really don't miss this one, because it is really so cool. Now through the middle of April, museumofwesternart.com, 1550 Bandera Highway. Thanks to the Texas Hill Country Podcast Network. And Allyson, thanks for joining us.